The army jackets, the match and shit like that. Nas got super jiggy with it. I got to give it to Nas. I know I was buying shit that Nas.
The narrative you want to paint, you still got to listen to me talking to you right now in 2025. What I did for Nas probably never been done for him in his life. He's never been that viral at all, ever.
He's rich as I won't give it to him. But in that day, in the 90s and shit like that, we was trying to buy everything Nas has, from the Helly Hansons to the rugby jackets. Nas had that B-boy.
Jim Jones, the public enemy #1 of hip-hop, is making waves once more. It appears that Nas finally clapped back at him after years of hurling jabs without receiving a reaction, putting an end to their protracted, one-sided dispute with the Queensbridge great. Now that June 2025 has arrived, a bizarre video of a Jim Jones follower has suddenly gone popular on YouTube and TikTok. And people are talking about it non-stop.
You said, and I quote,
Yo, Eli, stand on it, bro.
Jim Jones. Who was the old nigga? You coming back into the old era.
I grew up on Jim Jones.
Okay, you saying Jim Jones has more hits than Nas?
For anyone who is unclear about that widely shared video, hey, in fact, the entire dispute began during Adrex's Don't Quote Me podcast episode. They had a teenage visitor from Atlanta who had a really fiery opinion that went viral and reverberated throughout the rap industry, including hip-hop circles and Twitter feeds.
Never in my life said at a party, yo, throwing that Nas right now.
Okay, and
I never did.
One participant in the podcast ventured to equate Jim Jones's prominence and importance to that of Nas. That was all it needed to incite the fervent Jim Jones admirer, who was 22 years old, to go into full beast mode on the microphone.
From New Jersey, ballin', we grew up on ballin'.
That's one.
We did not grow up on One Mic. Even though I went back and listened to One Mic, and that's a good song, it's a classic song, we grew up on.
Jim Jones appeared on Fat Joe and Yataka's show just 6 days after the footage went viral, further igniting the controversy. He confidently said that he is not only superior to Nez, but also more popular, relevant, and attractive at the moment.
I did for Nas probably never been done for him in his life. He's never been that viral at all, ever. He's never been talked about like this ever in his life.
Now, has Nas reached out to you?
You did. The last time he was in some like this, where people were comparing, was when him and Jay was beating on him.
The internet went crazy once that young man's video became viral, and Nas fans in particular devoured it right away. His words should never have appeared on the podcast in the first place, according to many. Since then, he has always been the target of trolls. Unbelievably, though, that was only the start. The controversy just became messier and began to blow up on social media.
That are also not around anymore. Been gone. Diamond, 5-time platinum, 4-time platinum, gold artist. I've seen it since 1997. Gone. I'm still.
Jim Jones wasn't going to let his teenage fan handle all the criticism by themselves once the podcast footage went viral. He immediately threw in his own explosive 2 cents, controversial enough to cause further controversy.
Naturally, if you gonna talk about me, I'm gonna always talk my shit. You know, I know how this game goes. I don't want nobody to think that anything that I've done was me starting. That was just me being asked a question and me answering as a...
He put the thermostat all the way up and listened to Fat Joe and Yataka's podcast. Jim boasted that he is a better rapper and a greater financial success than the Queensbridge icon himself. In addition to reiterating his claim that he is more relevant than Nas,
picture to me to be in a hype man, or he wasn't the best rapper, or he just started to get whatever you want to narrative you want to paint. You still got to listen to me talking to you right now in 20.
Jim's audacious statement startled even Fat Joe and Jadakiss. However, Jim refused to back down, challenging everyone on the internet to look at the receipts, not just the hosts. He instructed him to see his Billboard Hot 100 entries next to N's, determine who is actually winning. Jim claims that he has already decisively defeated Nas in terms of streaming numbers and chart positions.
All my entries and check all them Knicks entries and shit like that. And I'm not taking nothing away from nobody, but I hear the comparisons and the niggas be trying to act funny when it comes. No, I've been spanking a lot of this. shit. I'm talking about the industry. I've been putting on. So let's not get into that where we get into the numbers and I gotta show you the statistics of what I've done. You heard to what other people was done. You heard them. You want to go to the Billboard entries, pull up Nas Billboard entries, then pull up my Billboard entries.
Listen, we can't compare the two. What I'm trying to tell you is
I want to go there and
hold on.
Jim would probably stop there, but he didn't. El Capo wasn't done causing mayhem. Playing the generation card, he asserted that Nas is no longer relevant and is hardly heard anymore. Jim reiterated, mentioning both his own kid and many younger. People, I have no idea who Nas is. Depicting the Queensbridge mythology as a name that is becoming outdated and out of touch with modern society.
Your son.
He's your son.
No, but he knows.
My son can't tell you one Nas record. You heard? Like, let's keep it a buck here.
Yeah, but
like, let's keep it a buck. You heard? Let's keep it a buck.
Jim was as a result of all of this. It was inundated with criticism from hip-hop purists and Nas supporters. Jim Jones was checking his legacy temperature with the wrong thermometer. One admirer even quipped. The online roast was made even more painful by others who branded him outright rude and insane for disparaging NASA. Well,
but I like trouble, if that's the case, you know what I mean? If that's what we're going into. And not to say it like that, but you know, I'm for it. I'm built for it. This is what my whole thing was built on, was that type of engagement. And so here we are. And I gave people a prerequisite. Like, yo, I know how to go viral. This is easy. We're in an easy society where it's very easy to...
People take that bait so easy.
Too easy.
Even in comment area, he continued to get criticism. However, he was likely enjoying every moment of that influence since he knew Jim.
Young gentleman that they asked the question to, and his viral clip went viral. It was a young kid from Atlanta. He was on a podcast and they asked him who's more relevant, Jim Jones and Nas. And that clip went super viral, and that led all of these people at platforms
to ask you the question.
Jim Jones resisted giving in, despite the internet's constant pressure to do so. He only continued to speak louder. The action was deemed by many to be tone deaf, diluted, and merely an unsuccessful attempt to increase his bag. Naturally, though, he was unfazed by all of it. More trolling just translates into more money in Jim's world. And the criticism simply strengthened his resolve.
Young gentleman that they asked the question to, and his viral clip went viral. It was a young kid from Atlanta. He was on a podcast and they asked him who's more relevant, Jim Jones and Nas. And that clip went super viral, and that led all of these people at platforms
to ask you the question.
Jim Jones appeared on Club Shay Shay, the largest black entertainment podcast currently available, the very next week. Jim stuck to his word when host Shannon Sharp questioned him, even questioning if he was intoxicated when he asserted that he was superior to Nas. This time, he made an effort to clarify that he wasn't asserting that he was more poetic than Nas. He said that he used to bash Illmatic heavily throughout high school and even handed Nas his roses. Nas hasn't carried the same level of relevance since, Jim said, flipping it. The bullets continued to flow from that point on.
Music out. It makes it that much easier to know who Jim Jones is. It makes it that much easier for you to become a fan of Jim Jones. Like, I'm worried about myself when I make all of these moves. At the end of the day, I know how to turn my negatives into a positive.
Jerry guarding fashion, commercial strategies, street cred, cultural effect, and influence on the next generation. Jim vowed that he is deserving of far greater regard. He reminded everyone that, in a manner that Nas never did, Dipset created the rap aesthetics, set the swag, and molded the mixtape period. Jim boasted that Nasmic had the bars, but I had the blueprint for a whole way of life. Make it louder. He took out $450,000 in cash from the podcast table and challenged Nas and Nas, other rappers, to a rap war to see who controls it. And Nas said absolutely nothing during all of this turmoil.
I admired Nas, but remember, Nas' first record, The Barbecue, came out when I was in 11th grade. So Nas was my idol when I was young. Like, you dig? Came to dressing, the wordplay, the music, everything. I was a superior Nas.
The hashtag Jim Jones began trending on X once more following the release of that episode. All of a sudden, every hip-hop enthusiast was looking up Jim and S online. People naturally anticipated that Nas would respond favorably, or at the very at least rise to the occasion. However, there has been radio silence from Nas across his whole camp from the beginning of this crisis. He seems to be purposefully ignoring Jim's antics, practically. Nas remained silent, but his supporters weren't. Jim has been continuously grilled ever since the video went public. Additionally, the trolling only gets worse every day. Nas followers are not letting Jim get away with attacking their legacy this time, as seen by the crazy memes and constant clowning. Let's face it, the majority of fans are well aware that Jim has performed similar stunts before. Jim had a reputation for selling himself at every chance, even before his spat with Nas. Whatever the scandal, rumor, or controversy, he was going along with it until the wheels fell off, as long as it put him back in the news. Because of this, a lot of people think he's just using this nasty conflict to gain influence. However, no one can be certain because of the two parties' long-standing, unsaid hostility. Is Jim playing the opening to keep his name in the spotlight? Or does he really have it out for Nas?
I would have bought a bar with anyone. With anyone. You heard? There ain't no beating around the bush. I've been saying it, bro. I want smoke in the booth. You heard? That's the only way to settle this one. We all can put out dope freestyles. We all can put out dope music. I want smoke in the booth.
Jim certainly didn't anticipate it to become viral the way it did. Whatever was going through his mind when he chose to reply to that viral footage. He even acknowledged that afterward. In the meantime, Nas fans deluged his comment area, calling him by every name in the book and harassing him online. Jim said he didn't anticipate such a vehement reaction. However, he maintained that he is an expert in spinning it, converting all of that hate into streams, attention, and above all, cash.
100K and say, who won it? It's up. Who want to go?
100%. I ain't got 100 on me now. I got like 40, 50 on me.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's right.
You can
get this right now, bitch. Right now.
The real person.
Right now. And it ain't a money thing, but this is here. You heard? If you want to get busy, is the money on the line. Any one of y'all for my error.
Jim's eventual admission that he could have inflated his own fame in order to capitalize on the viral wave just made things even more crazy. Jim refused to back down in an interview with Angie Martinez when she accused him of trolling, instead of laying it out. He stated, "We are in a community where everything turns viral. And everything viral turns digital. And digital ends up with streams and turns into a revenue stream for me." In essence, he admitted that he was turning the entire incident into a financial gain. We're in a
wave, but it didn't carry over the way that we seen other artists carry over that was supposed to be in his position. He was supposed to be a leader of, but he didn't get to finish his mission. Really, I don't care about that part. You think I care?
A few days later, Capo took to Instagram once more to confess that he had just manipulated the controversy around the beef to promote his business and get popular. Fans, however, didn't buy it at all. They believed that Jim had just committed his worst professional error by returning for Nas. The outcry was considerably more pronounced this time.
An easy society where it's very easy to...
People take that bait so easy.
Too easy.
It's a little scary, but you seem to not, you clearly are not afraid of it. But I see you also seem to lean into it.
Sometimes.
Yeah. What do you get out of that?
Recall that during all of this, Nas had not spoken a word. That's what everyone believed. Anyhow, after it leaked, a new stanza suddenly appeared in Raekwon the Chef's song. Let's just say that things were somewhat chaotic. Nas was heard rhyming and throwing deadly sneak disses in a different version that was released to the public. If the shoe fits is for you. All of a sudden, the quiet had changed.
So naturally, everything viral turns digital, and digital ends up with streams and turns into a revenue stream for me, of course. And I'm so on everybody's Explorer page. I'm at the top of this page. I'm at the top of that page. So whether you like me, don't like me, know who I was, and now find out who I was, one click away from making me.
Fans of hip-hop went bananas attempting to put it together. And the aim was clear to the majority of people. Jim had to be the recipient of the shoe. Since Nas had just retaliated for the first time, everyone was giddy with anticipation that this may eventually blow out into a lyrical duel. Not to mention that Jim has been behaving as though he is prepared for all the smoke anyhow. whereas Nas is an expert in literary warfare. Here's the problem, though. These two had been at odds for a long time. This year was not even the beginning of it. The early 2000s was when this tension first began to boil. Jim wasn't even the initial target of the feud. It happened with Cameron, Jim's dipshit brother, during a time when there was fierce rivalry in the rap industry. Jim Jones was only beginning to find his footing and would make his breakthrough a few years later. While Nas was riding high at the time thanks to back-to-back platinum albums like Stillmatic and Godson, the catalyst was Cameron's 2003 release of Come Home With Me, which coincided with Nas's project's release. Cam even made fun of Nas for being faux deep because he thought he was overrated. Nas retaliated by yelling at Cam. Jim Jones then inherited the meat out of allegiance to his dipshit, my lead-ins to his nipshit, Fumley. Eventually, what began as crew loyalty would turn into Jim versus Nas, and it's still going strong decades later. Although this may seem strange today, loyalty was a key component of the rap game in the past. It was expected of you to always ride hard for your brothers if you were a crew member. Thus, it's possible that Jim's posture wasn't entirely at odds with the star. Jim was prepared to carry it as well if Cam had been smoking with Nez. He made the decision to face Nez, since he couldn't stand him. It seemed delicate at first, but everyone knows Jim isn't the kind to keep quiet for very long. His dices, lines, and tracks were directed directly toward Nas from that point on. Jim began making light jabs, making fun of so-called fake smart rappers and making fun of super-conscious artists in interviews and freestyles. Fans instantly identified with Nas, who also dropped freestyles, supported Cameron's mixtapes with more subliminals, and even threatened to pull up in Compton to further emphasize his points. Nas, meanwhile, hardly ever gave him a straight response. Fans weren't blind, though. They also managed to catch the subliminals. The streets understood that Nas was aiming at Dipset and Jim Jones whenever he rapped about whack crews or wannabe Harlem gangsters. Even if he never used their names. The dispute seems to have cooled off by 2010. Jim said that he wished their relationship had gone differently, and even referred to Nas as one of the best MCs of all time. However, 10 years later, the animosity abruptly resurfaced as a result of discussions over hip-hop's legacy, the popularity of podcasts, and the constant rap discussion on Twitter. As both new and seasoned fans began re-examining the NAS versus Dipset story, Jim jumped right in. He became quite vocal on websites like Rap Caviar, asking why Nas is consistently listed among the top 5 rappers and stating categorically that no one plays Nas anymore in clubs or on the streets. Jim's ranking of Drake above Nas among the all-time greats further stoked the controversy. Naturally, the backlash was severe. The fact that Jim is a devoted Drake supporter is what everyone knows him for. Therefore, nobody was surprised either.
Gold records, platinum records, gold albums, platinum albums. You know, me, Jim Jones. No diplomats, no nobody else. Me, Jim Jones. Check my track record, then check everybody else's track.
With fans excited that it would lead to an official diss duel between two legends, the rap community has been fixated on that leaked clip. However, Nas and his team haven't spoken to the media at all thus far. However, it hasn't deterred his admirers. They're not waiting for Nas to respond this time. Jim has been constantly being cooked by the rap community, which has been pursuing him from all sides. In all honesty, a man can only handle so much. Jim has personally seen the extent to which NASA supporters will go in an attempt to put his head on a platter. Jim abruptly began to back off, ultimately raising the white flag on this never-ending one-sided feud with Nas. Just when it appeared that he had gotten precisely what he wanted: attention, commotion, and headlines.
That's all I'm doing is popping my shit, and this is what hip-hop is about. But for the most part, I got no problem with Nas. Shouts to Nas, shouts to all of them guys.
Who's most
like
influenced you now that you said that?
Jim has attempted to portray the entire issue as nothing more than marketing in a few blogs thus far. Clickbait to promote himself, plain and simple. However, one thing is quite evident. He made one of the biggest blunders he could have made by trolling Nas. What are your thoughts? Is this a genuine shot gone bad? Or was it merely clout chasing? Leave a comment with your ideas. Remember to subscribe, like, and share.